Hey, everybody. Welcome to Having Had Podcast, Episode 8. This is part 2 of a conversation with Mark Morton of Lamb of God. If you haven't listened to 7, you might want to go back and check that out. Or listen to this one first, whatever you want to do. I'm just glad you're here. Please like, subscribe, follow on Instagram at Having Had Podcast, all of those things. I hope you enjoy the second half of this conversation. Change gears just a little, but it's kind of a random question. I'll qualify it. Have you had any close calls with death? And the reason I ask is, and it doesn't have to be death. It can be, just any event or big turning point in your life. For me, and this is in recovery, years into recovery, and I kind of alluded to this in another episode, but it's happened to me twice. I got hit by a car with with one of my best friends. We were out riding bicycles. We used to ride like Tour de France bikes, and the guy rear-ended us going 65 miles an hour. And it almost killed my buddy, broke 27 bones, broke his neck, had a major brain injury, and broke my pelvis, and I had a really bad concussion and a bunch of injuries. But I had the experience laying in that ditch because we were way out in the middle of the country, middle of nowhere in Redneckistan. And the guy who hit us didn't get out of the car. And so it was just me and about 40 feet away from me, my buddy laying, and I couldn't see him the way I was laying in this ditch. And I just had this overwhelming sense of all of the noise was quiet. And when I say all the noise, I mean everything. Everything I was worried about that day, all the stuff going on at work, stuff going on, all of the little pettiness, which it all became petty. And the only thing that mattered is I wanted to talk to my girls. At the time, I just had my 2 daughters. And that was it. And I tried to hold on to that for, life creeps back in and, you get busy again, the noise turns up again. And then boom, about 5 years ago, I dissected my carotid artery. Should have been a widowmaker. They're like, people don't survive this. We have no explanation on why you lived. And I sat in a stroke unit for 5 days and had that exact same feeling again. So I've had these 2 experiences that showed me how it just gave me the blueprint on how to enjoy what's important. You know what I mean? And staying in that and remembering that every day is the difficulty. So, I'm not just asking, have you almost died, dude? But is there been any moment in your life or a pivot point in your life at any point where you can clearly mark the before and after like that?
Fortunately, no, I haven't had those kind of near-death experiences. I was in a really bad car accident when I was a teenager. I was in the passenger seat and riding around with some friends, and the girl driving hit a tree, and I buckled the dash all up and bubbled out the windshield and was laid out across the floorboard, and they had to cut me out of the car and all that kind of stuff. This was back in the 80s before people wore seatbelts. Um, but I don't think, I mean, it may have been near death in the sense that had I hit a little bit to the left or something, I would have split my head open or something like that. Um, but I didn't see any tunnels or lights or anything like that, and I didn't have any epiphanies. I just woke up to the sound of a machine cutting me out and um, a woman's voice who was one of the first responders telling me, "You've been in a car accident. We're going to take care of you, and you're going to be okay." And she was telling me the truth. Um, but I didn't, I don't think that's the same thing you're talking about. I had a couple experiences during my heavy drug use that I think I was really close to having some significant uh, to having a significant health crisis, but it didn't really happen. It was just kind of like really flirting with that edge. And again, I didn't. What? Whoa. What is that?
Cooper after something.
Yeah. 100-pound bloodhound, like freaking out. uh, so yeah, no, nothing like that where I've really like seen the light. I think, for me, the big before and after is, again, it's just back to getting clean, getting sober. It's the same thing to me. Um, and understanding, I think at the core, at the essence of it is what we're talking about the same thing,
Yeah.
which is understanding that all of the things that I thought were important aren't the things that are important. And understanding that being present, for the moment that you're in, and being grateful for the things around you, that are happening, and kind of just observing them as a witness, as a grateful, engaged witness,
Yeah.
um, is really what it's about. And as you laid out, staying connected to that thought, to that idea, um, to that notion is the challenge.
Yeah.
Because I have done it enough to know, and I've experienced that sort of peace enough to know, and that sort of presence of existence enough to know that I can be there and I like it there. But, in the course of our everyday lives, we get so distracted and pulled so many ways and get caught up in the gerbil wheel, and lose touch with that,
Yeah.
concept.
The noise,
Mm-hmm.
it gets loud. And the good news for me, at least, is I find that if I am just taking care of there was an old timer when I first got sober that used to say all the time, if you never get away from the basics, you don't have to get back to them. And if I can just do the simple things outlined that I'm supposed to do every day, I stay a lot closer. I stay a lot closer to that spot I was laying in that ditch. You know what I mean? Where I'm right sized, I'm where my feet are, and all the things that matter, I'm good with. You know what I mean? And it's crazy, and this is just part of how the disease still tries to attack me almost 35 years in, is that I know that. I absolutely know there is a solution. I know what to do. And my brain just still attacks me some days. And I will willfully not do the things I'm supposed to do and just choose misery some days. And that's the insanity of it. And that's why, I don't get cured of this deal until I'm in the ground or turned to ash or whatever.
Well, but and you and I have talked about this in different contexts before, but that's why. And I know one of your themes of this project, this podcast, is points of connection and engagement, and uh, dialogue, and that's why we have to talk to other people, because
Yeah.
if we don't, then we just let the noise take over, and we're just. I always think of that I Love Lucy episode where the
We're
chocolate.
dating ourselves.
Yeah, I know it's so boomer, but when I was a kid, I used to watch that, and they're working. Lucy and Ethel are working in the chocolate factory, and there's this conveyor belt of chocolates, and they're supposed to be boxing them, but it's going too fast, and Lucy's like shoving them in her mouth and in her pockets and stuff. She was such a funny
It's
lady.
awesome.
But yeah, that's what life feels like. You know what I mean? It's just like, oh God, it's all coming too fast. I don't know what to do. Oh.
That's great. What a reference. I totally remember that episode, which makes me feel old as hell. That, and I bet did you watch Carol Burnett too?
Yeah, that came on.
That was so good. And Hee Haw. Come on, man.
Dude, my wife is 33 and I'm 51, and Carol Burnett came on. You know, she's incredible, and we have such a really an awesome relationship. But one thing that happens we really don't think about our age gap too much, which is 18 years. It doesn't come up a lot until it's like some point of cultural reference, like Carol Burnett came on, and I don't remember even in what context. Something came on, flashed on the screen where it was like a couple seconds of the Carol Burnett show, and I was like, "Oh man, I remember that." And she's like, "Oh my God." I might as well have been like a Charlie Chaplin silent film, and I was like, "Oh, I remember
Exactly.
that."
I have the same thing. Lisette is 11 years younger than me, and I'll make her. I'm just like, oh, geez, babe. I get it. Yeah.
I'm like, I saw Nirvana in concert, and she's just like,
All right. How much has becoming a dad changed you? Like how, and I know there's pre and post getting sober with that too, but
yeah.
it's,
Let me can we pause for 1 second?
yeah,
Um, I'm
yeah.
gonna go
You
make sure he didn't get bit by a snake or something because he was freaking out. Hold
okay.
on,
Yeah.
hold on. All right,
Be good.
seems to be.
Was it a possum or something?
I don't know. I don't know what's going on. I go out and look. Come on, ding dong. I go out and look.
You're gonna lay down on under the Randy Travis.
What happened, Coot? Hey, Cooper. I was like looking out there. What happened? What was out there? Weirdo.
So to go back to where we were, uh, how much has becoming a dad changed you? Like,
It's hard to remember. My oldest is almost 14, and when she was born, I was kind of in the thick of it in terms of, my progression as an addict and an alcoholic. So, um, I provided, and she, I was as good a dad as I could be at the time. I would have told you I was a good dad, and I did my best. It's hard for me to put. I guess what I'm trying to say, Brent, is that it comes back to still everything pivots when I got clean for me. Like everything pivots there. So how much has being a dad changed me? Not as much as getting sober changed me, unfortunately, or
yeah,
fortunately, depending on how you look at that,
yeah,
right? Having kids, having children, um, has allowed me to experience a love for another person unlike anything I had ever known before. And that's, you'll hear parents say that because it's true. I love my kids more than I love my own life, and that's a lot.
yeah.
So, um, kids are they're a pain in the butt too, man. Being a parent is the most inconvenient thing you will ever do.
Yeah. And we're the same age. I'm a little over 2 months older than you.
We're
And
pretty close.
we both have a 3-year-old and
Yeah.
I've got a 5-year-old. And then
Mm.
my older ones are, 19 and 24, like I said earlier. And, so for the last few years, I've had one, already moved out and got married, year and a half ago. And, she just graduated nursing school. I got another one in college, and then I've got one starting, kindergarten next year and one in preschool.
Isn't it
It's
great?
it's hard, man. 51 chasing toddlers around
Yeah, I know,
is
man.
is dude.
Well, I know your wife a little bit, and you know mine a little bit. We got good wives, man.
Yes.
Thank God.
Thank God. Is all I'm saying. And my wife, yeah, they're fit and able to,
Yeah, they got all the energy and all that.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. Anyway, all right. Was there a particular moment, like thinking back, that you realized you made it? You know what I mean? Like that
yeah.
was a dream, right? You've achieved
Yeah.
it.
Every single step of the way. Like every
Got it.
step of the way, man. One of the things that's so great about my band Lamb of God is that we did not miss a rung of the ladder. Now there's a few we won't hit, um, but we didn't miss any of them on the way to where we're at. You know what I'm saying? We didn't
Yeah.
skip any of them, and I can tell you with absolute certainty that every time we leveled up or half a leveled up, we were all enjoy it, boys. This is good. This is gonna get, you know.
Yeah.
Uh, and it was, and I tell people this. I said this to someone the other day, and I've said it a few times, and I say it, half to elicit a smile, but it's also as much true. Is um, it was really only maybe 5 or 6 years ago that I finally was able to be like, all right, I probably am gonna be okay playing music. Pretty
Ab-
much. I'm not gonna have to go get a day job. Probably not.
Yeah.
Might
Ab-
have to downsize. Might have to, rethink, some of my financial decisions. But I'm probably not gonna have to go get a day job
Yeah.
because I'm so used to being convinced that it's just all gonna go. I saw an interview with Rob Zombie. Actually, I don't know Rob Zombie. We toured together once. I don't think we even spoke. But he's a very creative dude.
Yeah.
And I respect his creativity and his hustle, and he's had a great career. And I saw an interview with him where he said something like he spent his whole career thinking it's about to end, and, and I really do understand that. I understand that.
Yeah.
So I finally. The question was there a point in which you made it? Thought, wow, I finally made it. Signing to Epic. When we signed a major label deal, that was like a breath of relief. There was a signing advance that came that really, for the time too, was to me, um I'd never had that sum of money. It wasn't even enough money to buy a new car. um Maybe then, certainly not today.
Yeah.
That I received and got in my bank account, but that I had never had that kind of money. So I was like, oh my God, like I could pay I actually had a mortgage. I had bought a little tiny house in East Richmond working at a cabinet shop, and then we got signed. And with that amount of money, I was like, wow, I could pay my mortgage for the next 12 or 18 months. This is incredible.
Yeah.
And but even then I was like, wow, I made it. Now I was like, cool. The next year or two is going to be really cool. And then I'll go back to roofing.
Yeah. I don't know, man. Watching, like, my years of touring, like I said, were, from the early 90s up through the mid 2000s. And I worked for a ton of bands that were even in y'all's orbit. But when you guys kind of came in and made your rise, you know how you reach a saturation point, you can only be into so many bands, and like, I didn't find you guys musically. Like, I didn't listen to any of it until I met Randy, not long after he came in, through some mutual friends in recovery. I met him, pretty quick after he got clean. And I remember, like, I need to go check. It's just one of those things I always meant to do. I need to listen to Lamb of God, because I knew all these people I love and respected loved you guys. But, like, I just didn't have any more bandwidth for any
Mm-hmm.
more new music. And I say new music, you had like 5-6 albums by
Yeah,
then.
yeah, yeah.
But the first thing on YouTube I looked up was, I think it was you guys at Donington, or Download, whatever that's the, used to be Donington, '09 or whatever year it was. And there's, I don't know, 100 million people there.
I think it was 100,000.
And it just to, and you guys, I mean, they were in the palm of your hand. And even though I have stood on the side of the stage for so many of those, it's never lost on me just what a feeling. Like, I've never been the dude on stage, like I've been on this, I haven't been the guy playing. And just to imagine that feeling, I asked Clint this question. I've had comment on my episode here, but I've talked to others about it. And, like Clint's answer was, man, it was probably some random show in a medium-sized market, when realizing that it was the 10th night in a row that every person I can see in the audience is singing every word. It was a run-of-the-mill, more cumulative experience of realizing that I think we've made it to a spot where we can sustain this,
Mm-hmm.
But like seeing that video, I could still go back and look at some of the huge shows you guys have played and live vicariously through you, and just think, wow, that's got to be cool.
It becomes this weird thing that, like, sometimes I'll describe to people. For me, it becomes a thing that's maybe different than what you might expect, where it gets very quiet for me because everything is so loud and lights popping and flames sometimes and cryo and mosh pits and the you know all that stuff, and it becomes this very quiet space for me where I don't have to talk to anybody. Nobody's going to ask me any questions. Not that I hate those things, but you know what I mean? It's almost like this bubble when we're on stage playing a song. As long as my guitar keeps working and I keep doing what I'm supposed to do, it's just this, you just kind of get in this current of it and it just starts carrying you. And it feels very safe on it when it's all clicking right. You feel very I feel very quiet and on a good night, very insulated and safe.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Like my experience, my experience as a guitar tech for 15 years is quite the opposite of that. Is the panic and worry and concern of, what's going to break and am I ready to
That's the
troubleshoot
most
it? And,
like anxiety ridden job because as soon as something does go wrong, everybody's looking at you,
yeah.
and you got all these buttons to push and
Yeah.
readouts, and it could be there's 30 cables in the rig, and it
Yeah.
could be any one of them.
Yeah.
It could be any one of them.
I told a story in my buddy Ian Keith's episode. He's another guitar tech, about the worst gig I ever had. And it was I was working for Anthrax. And if you heard Ian's episode and you're listening, just fast forward past this. But the short version of it, I was teching for Frankie Bello, and the lead player at the time was Paul Crook. And I was doing both of them. This was in '97. We were main support on Pantera. And we were I'll never forget it. We were at the National Guard Armory.
I saw that tour at Hampton Coliseum.
I was there. I was handing guitars to those two.
I saw that tour, yeah.
Yep. So we, it was at the National Guard Armory in Salem, Oregon. And I had the flu. It was terrible. I was super sick, but there's nobody else. You can't call in sick.
No sick days, man.
And we were set up like they had scrims in front of the cabinets, like old school, just the scrim pop-ups. And we left just enough space in between. I was on Rex's side, in front of Rex's cabinets, where my Guitar World was. I had both their rigs with boats on top, and they had the song Got the Time in the set, that starts with the bass solo. And there was a thrust off the front of the stage, and Frankie goes out there, and does like a little bass solo at the beginning of that song every night. So when they come off the song before, I do his change real quick first, and then I've got a minute to get Paul's stuff ready and hand it to him. And so I hand off to Frankie, and he takes off, and I'm standing there talking to Paul and, finishing tuning his guitar. And I had this all of a sudden sinking feeling that he should have been playing by now.
I don't hear anything. Yeah.
I don't hear anything. And about that time, there's Frankie standing there. And Frankie, he's super awesome, nice guy. And
one of the most personable guys ever. Yeah.
And he was just like, what the fuck? Screaming at me. And I'm like, what? So I immediately look at his rig and start, top of the signal flow. And I'm slapping the bass, and there's signal at the wireless. So I'm like, okay, cool. And I'm looking, so I'm following the flow. Paul Crook, who had teched for Blue Oyster Cult and teched for Slayer, and that's how he ended up playing with Anthrax, as he teched for him for a while for Danny Spitz. So he helped me start troubleshooting it. Boom. The next thing I know, here comes Grady crashing in because he was over there getting ready for their set, Dom's Tech, and comes crashing in. And where are we at? And he's like a bull in a china shop. And when he grabbed the top of the rig, all of a sudden there's bass. He grabbed it to turn it. And so Frankie just takes off and starts playing, and he had like the first Sony wireless ever made, like from World War II. And it had a mute button on the front of it that I didn't use, and the LED light was burned out. And I guess either him throwing his towel on there, or maybe I bumped it and it had muted it. Not a huge deal, but yeah, worst
You would
gig
never
ever.
know it. Yeah.
What's the big? Have you fucked up a show,
Dude? You telling that story made me think about this time. I'm sitting here debating whether to say who did.
I can edit it out if you don't want it in there.
I had a tech.
Yeah.
He's still a friend, and he's still very active and deserves to be in the music industry. Everyone's human and makes mistakes, right?
Yeah.
We're opening for Slayer, LA Forum, sold out Forum, big show. Opening for Slayer, we're direct support, and that tour we're opening our set with the song "Laid to Rest." It's one of Lamb of God's bigger songs, and the song starts out where the guitar's counted in, and on the one, the first hit of the song is a crash and a catch, and then it's a full two measures, a full 8 quarter notes before another crash where I still keep playing. It's about 4 measures of guitar that start the song, me by myself. So we count off the set, boom, we hit that first crash. Now it's supposed to just be me playing the riff, and there's nothing. Beginning of the set, sold out LA Forum, and I'm standing there playing guitar, and nothing's coming out. Same thing with the Frankie thing. And he figures it out relatively quickly, but not quick enough to make it not obvious. And I went back, but we played 3 songs, and then we had a little break where Randy introduces and all that stuff, and I came back and I put my head right to his ear, and I was like, I love you, right? And he's like, yeah, I know. And I was like, you ever do that to me again, I'm gonna put you on a plane, send you home, brother.
Well, the way Frankie handled it is I got back, I finished, we loaded the truck, about 2 songs into Pantera's set were done, and I went to throw my bag on the bus. And I knew it was like, I'm going to go take my medicine. I got to be a big boy. I knew Frankie, he would always go to the bus after the show and sit in the front lounge. And he was usually the only one in there right after the set. So when I walked in, he's sitting at the front lounge. I think he was reading a book, had just eaten. And he didn't even look up at me. And I walked through and went to my bunk and put my stuff in. And I came back out and just kind of stood there like, I'm ready to take my beating, And he looked up and he just goes, "What's up, man?" And I was like, and I start giving him my spiel. "I'm so sorry, man. That's never happened. Blah, 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 blah." I figured out what it was. He was, "Oh, dude, don't worry about it. It happens. You did great."
And that speaks to that thing too, that there's this, and you understand it, and anyone watching this that does, tours for a living will understand it. But there's this window of the show where things are more charged and emotional, and your threshold for someone barking at you or like, is elevated because we all know it's adrenaline and the show's going on. And then after it, it's like, it's only rock and roll. It's not that serious. We're not, me and another tech, my friend Jake, we used to say, man, we're not heart surgeons.
Yeah.
It's like we can make a little mistake. This ain't neuroscience, man.
Yeah, man.
This is rock and roll.
All right. So when I started this podcast, I was thinking about it when I kind of got the idea to do it. I talked to just a few people, and you were one of them. And I asked all of, this group of people, you being one, what's a question you don't get asked that you wish that you did? And do you remember what you told me? Because I got it right here.
No, did I answered it? What did I ask?
Yeah, you did. And I've asked it to several other people. Now that you've achieved your dream, how has it met or not met your expectations?
Okay.
What looks like you thought it would and what looks different?
Okay. It's a tough question.
It's your question.
Yeah. Um, well, the dream part is interesting because I I do think that it would have qualified as my dream, but it was like an unattainable dream. Like to me, like it really was like my I might as well have told you my dream was to go build a log cabin on Mars, you know. That's really my dream.
Yeah.
And it's probably not going to happen, you know.
Yeah.
But it did. So I've got the log cabin on Mars now. And there's a line in a Jason Isbell song where he says something about they finally let you be an astronaut. And I think that's what he means is like there's no way you were this was going to work out, but it did.
Yeah.
um so what looks like I thought it would, I don't think anything does. I don't think anything does. I think, you know, a lot of what I thought it would look like is sort of cliche stuff. All the typical, you know, sex, drugs, rock and roll cliche stuff, which is out there and was certainly a part of the story for a time. But um, the big story for my band is that we have stayed together as friends and as brothers through a fair amount of adversity, both personal and collectively. And to have arrived, I hope that I'm answering your question, to have arrived where we are now, where when we're on tour, when we come home, it's a little different. We have families, and a lot of Randy lives in another state now, and all this kind of stuff. So we're scattered a little bit, but when we're on tour, we really actually hang out together, and we laugh a lot. And you know, you've been around us, and it's mellow, and
Yeah.
it's cool, and that doesn't look like what I thought it would. I didn't think it would ever look like a bunch of middle-aged men um, laughing with and at each other playfully and watching a movie and being present for each other and caring about how each other's doing and um, giving each other space and respect. You know, there was a long time where I would have never guessed it would look like that.
Yeah. The
Um,
reality is better than the dream.
yeah, yeah,
In a way, it's almost what you couldn't have even imagined, however, 25 years ago or whatever.
for sure. And the same, you know, again, everything kind of comes back to recovery for me, and I hope it always does. But I couldn't have ever imagined wanting the life I have today. If you had shown me the life I have today, maybe, you know, apart from like the, you know, rock star shit, but if you had like just shown me like my perspective and the life I lead today and my day to day and the things that I aspire to and the things that I cherish and the things that are most important to me, there was a long time I would have told you like, no, I'm good on that. Like, um, so it all looks different than maybe I thought. Thank God.
Yeah. I shared this story on another episode, but I was early on in recovery, and a guy in a meeting one night, my home group, shared the story of, and I know you've probably heard me say it, but about uh, his hook, the high that he chased for his old drinking career. He was in college an hour east of here, and was coming home for a weekend to see his girlfriend, and like went to the dorm, showered, had a couple beers, got in his Camaro to drive the hour into the sunset back over here to Shreveport. And the weather was perfect songs on the radio, windows down. He's smoking a joint, getting on the interstate. And he said that whole drive home was perfect. The mixture was exactly right. He said, I spent the next 20 something years chasing that high, and I never had it again. He said, yesterday I was laying in the floor watching a movie with my wife and my two kids, and I got that same feeling. And that's, you know, that for me, if you'd have shown me, I wouldn't have understood the
Mm-hmm.
life I have today. Like, and I'm there, man. I get to, you know, I'm all about that. sign me up for that over, you know, download or anything today. but I wouldn't have believed that 25 years ago.
And what I've learned is that, and I heard this shared before I understood it and could apply and could accept it as part of my story too. But I have everything that I had hoped to get out of drugs and alcohol. Um, the reasons I was doing it without a lot of times even knowing those were the reasons I were doing are the things that I found in sobriety, which
Yep.
and I can name a lot of them. It's like being relatively comfortable with who I am and in my own skin and in my own body and with myself. Um, being okay around other people, uh, not not having to worry about fixing everything or controlling everything or all or winning or being right, all that, like that not caring. I don't care today, and it's like the most beautiful way. It's not that I don't care in a selfish way. I just like on a really good day, it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
You know, it's like to
Doesn't.
it just doesn't matter, and I think that's that right size thing you talk about when if it doesn't matter because I'm not the most important thing. I'm just here. There's
Yeah.
such a there was a long periods of my life when I that would have sounded defeated to me, like I was defeated or you know apathetic or had given, but it's not that. It's just right sized.
Yeah. Well, I aspire to have the level of, um, like your Twitter. And I know you're not on there as much as you used to be, or at
I'm
least I'm not on it right now. So maybe you are, but,
not.
but I am so conflict avoidant and averse that like I aspire to have the ability to enter into conflict the way that you do and not give a shit because I've always been very conflict avoidant at all costs. So I need you to be my sponsor in that
I mean,
area.
Twitter is a worthless activity. It's not without entertainment, but it certainly has no real bearing on anything. And there is a skill to it, and um, I, you know, I used to spend a lot of time on there, so I developed some of those skills. But it's like a political science degree; it's not worth anything.
Yeah. Well, okay, kind of one more meaty question, and then I'm gonna blast through some fun ones. We'll be done. Uh, we connect, you and I, because we come from the same place, like we covered that. How have you learned to find connection with other people that aren't from the same place?
Hmm.
That don't think, feel, believe the same way that you do. And I ask this knowing, like I've been lucky enough to came up, for your wedding and saw I got what better place than to see who's in somebody's world, you know what I mean? And to see the cross section of people and the energy of that group of people was inspiring.
What a nice thing to say.
It really was. And so how have you cultivated those, maybe relationships with people that aren't just like you? That's a
Well,
difficult thing in our world today.
I think I'm often it's not fair for me to characterize it as more interested, but I'm as interested in people that aren't like me because it brings a unique perspective, and I'm fascinated by what people are into, even if it's not something I'm into or people's experiences. I like to ask questions. So I think what creates connection there is usually just finding something I'm intrigued about someone and their experience or something I want to learn something. You can learn something from anybody,
Yeah.
um, and just finding humanity. finding compassion if someone's if someone's prickly and kind of cantankerous or confrontational. I can usually find compassion because
Yeah.
there's something behind that. You know what I mean? There's some kind of pain behind that or fear behind that or whatever. But I don't know what. How do I find connection with people? I think just out of curiosity for someone's humanity and someone's really creativity is at the base of it for everything for me. Um, I find things creative that maybe aren't don't seem creative at the outset. Just the way people approach things and um, different perspective and insights on things. So I think I'm talking around your question. I'm just genuinely interested in learning from people and interested in humanity, which is really what we all have
Yeah.
most in common.
I think for me, one thing that's changed since meeting my wife, she's a psychologist, and the idea that I have learned from her is that her immediate question when she sees someone that's or meets a prickly person, like you said, her immediate response is in her head, her dialogue internally is, "Oh, I wonder what happened to them,"
Mm-hmm.
you know, and that's just that simple idea of when I encounter somebody that's not pleasant or whatever, I hate whatever's happened to them. It's just that compassionate thought, not of to hell with this person, but something terrible probably happened to them. Just
I
that idea was a whole new concept to me.
Yeah, I mean that's the compassion because those like I said those sort of abrasive people are usually angry or scared or both. And two, just I think going back to that question is like you can just asking people questions, I think, is usually a good way. Like, I Brittany makes fun of me. My wife makes fun of me because someone will come over to work on the house. I got over working on the generator last week, and I'm hanging over the rail going, "How long you been doing this?"
Yeah.
Yeah, you rather work for this company than work for yourself? Older guy, you need master electrician generator guy.
Yeah.
Oh, I bet because of this, and oh, you worked in Texas for a while. Like, what was that like? Where were you at? Did you not like it down there? And she's just like, leave that man alone. Let him do his job. I'm like, well, I just want to see what's going on. Like, I don't
Yeah.
know. And I'm like that.
Yeah. I do the same thing.
The sober version of me is like that. The not sober version of me was not like that.
Not so much. All right. These are in no particular order, just some random questions.
Okay.
Along the way, who have you been starstruck by? Was there anybody in particular? Like for me, there were, and I've got all the movie stuff as well doing that. But I remember the first time I was around Hetfield. I was doing the first Down tour, and we were at the Fillmore in San Francisco, and I'd walked out front to walk down the street or something, and was coming back upstairs, and it was around we had just finished sound check, and he came in the side, it just walked past me and like walked in the building with me. I couldn't even talk to the dude,
Mm.
just like shook.
Yeah, James Hetfield has that kind of presence for sure.
Yeah,
He made that easy for me because the first time I ever met him was we were starting a tour with him, and it was like the first night, um, and there was this kind of just like first night. It wasn't like, hey, we're having a first night party. It just wound up being like, after the first show, it was
yeah,
a good show, and everybody's hanging out and stuff, and he popped up and he just kind of slid over to me and introduced himself and started talking, and he is a while he's a he's just kind of a big guy and he has this big energy and this big presence.
yeah.
He's just also very like gentle and genuine. So he made that easy. So while I was like, holy cow, I just met James Hetfield and he's really cool. I can't say I was like starstruck. When you meet and talk to Ozzy Osbourne, it's you can't
Yeah,
you know it's fucking Ozzy, man.
yeah,
And it's Ozzy. Like, so, I'm not like at a loss for words necessarily, but I keep it you know, I've been in a couple different around Ozzy a few times and spoke to him a couple different times, and I keep it very short and because I just don't want to be in his way at all because it's fucking
Yeah.
Ozzy.
Yeah. You don't want to embarrass yourself.
Yeah, I just
And
I don't want to be in his way. Um,
mine are random. Like I've done film, I've got whatever over 50 film credits, and I've done, from Tom Hanks to Ed Norton. I've worked with a ton of, stars over the years. I don't get near as weird about that. But like if I saw Matt Henderson walk down the street, I would feel embarrassed. I would fanboy out on him, like because at 51 years old, I'll still drive down the road, headed home from preschool drop off and mosh in the front of my truck listening to, old AF or Madball, So
yeah,
mine are really random. It's just people that I didn't get the opportunity to get to know over the years that at this point in life, I'm like, I'm just going to let them be this larger than life. But, it's totally random ones like that for me.
I was one time around a pool table, a billiards table with it was me and Willie Adler, who's the other guitar player in our band. And Willie doesn't drink; he hasn't drank for a long time, but this was when he was still drinking. And so it was me and Willie. It was Lemmy, Jerry Cantrell, and Vinnie Paul. And that was quite a crowd. And Willie was in full form that night, and it was absolutely hilarious. And uh, I can't tell the story on your podcast, but it was really really funny and really funny. And Lemmy, man, they just really don't make
No.
rock stars. Like that's another Ozzy thing, and Slash too just has this like and
Yeah.
Slash and I have spoken a number of times, and he's such a cool dude, man. But I mean, it's just Guns N' Roses. That you know, Appetite for Destruction was so massive to me, and Slash was like such a guitar hero, and he was just like really really cool, and his songs were so important to me, and so even still today, when on occasion when Slash is in the room or around or something, which happens, I guess, from time to time, I'm like, Slash is over there. Hey man.
The, I had a, I did Ozfest with Motorhead in '98. I was working for Seven Dust, and we played an off-day show in Clinton, Iowa, called Pigstock, and it was right next to a feedlot. The guy used to do it
I'm
every
pretty
year.
sure I played
I'm
Pigsty.
pretty
Yeah,
sure
yeah,
y'all
yeah,
did.
yeah.
But I was squatted down getting something out of the bay at like 10 o'clock in the morning. We had just dumped our truck and we're waiting to put stuff on deck. And the bus, we were right next to Motorhead's bus, and their bus door opened, and like it's the sun's just come up, and middle of summer, there's a fucking feedlot right there. It smells like you're in hell. It was just terrible. And Lemmy steps out of the bus in cowboy boots and his tidy whities
Oh my God.
and lit a cigarette, and he didn't know I was there. I'm 3 feet behind him, and he literally stood there and like sunned himself. And I didn't have, it was before iPhones, or there would be photographic evidence of that moment.
uh,
But
yeah, that dude is that's they don't make them like that, man.
yeah, no, whole different level. All right. So, goofy stuff. Do you have a favorite movie?
I'm so bad with movies, man. I mean, not really. I still love Pulp Fiction. I mean, I've probably seen that movie more than any other movie I've ever seen, and it's still great.
Yeah.
Goodfellas is great. Just all those kind of classics of that era.
Yeah. Okay, this one. I'm not going to ask you for like the best riff ever written, but rattle off top 4 or 5
Riffs,
heaviest riffs, not of anybody's.
yeah.
What?
I
What?
mean, I think when I think of a guitar riff, and if someone asks me like, what is a riff?
Yeah.
I would play them Whole Lot of Love. I mean, that is a riff. That's what a riff is.
Da-da-da-da-da.
That's what a riff is.
Yeah,
So to
gotcha.
me, that's number one because that's to me is if that's what I'm gonna if you know they say you look up riff in the dictionary and it's, that to me that's what it would be. So that's a riff. If I had to explain to my if my 13-year-old came in here, Dad, what is a riff? Listen to this.
Play that.
That's what a riff is. Like you
Uh,
said, top five. I don't know.
yeah,
I mean, yeah. Uh,
not in order or anything.
yeah. Which is it? Electric Funeral. I mean,
Yep,
that's as scary as it gets, right?
yep.
Um,
National Acrobat's always been my favorite Sabbath.
yeah.
It's so good.
Um, I don't know. I'm not sure. Beyond that, those are the two quintessential riffs for me.
That'll do it.
Yeah.
What inspires you today? What gets you out of bed?
Whatever I'm working on, it's
Yeah.
kind of different as, from time to time. But it's I just I really love working, man. I love working on music. Uh I always have music in my head and I'm always excited about trying to help. I, I s- this sounds like something somebody would make up, but I swear to you, man, almost every morning I have a song in my head. And I don't mean like a Zeppelin song I mean I have
Yeah.
some song in my head that's not anything. It's just like the song that's in my head when I wake up.
Yeah.
It's not often that I'll translate those into something that I bring to some sort of existence, but it's it's definitely like the first thing that I'm conscious of is music, and I think that it's those of us that are musical and that make music, I think that I believe without at the risk, at the risk of sounding a little too frou frou and hippy dippy, I do believe music is a very spiritual language. I think it's deeper than just like some sort of entertainment form. I think, it's a means of communication that comes from somewhere else. Because me or you or anyone that's musical could take an instrument that we or have a loose understanding of how to work and go in front of a group of people that don't even speak the same language as we do and come from a completely different culture than we do, and I could communicate emotion to those people through the sound I make with the instrument that I know how to use. And to me, that without using a language or any sort of knowledge based thing, to be able to communicate like that is that's sort of defines spiritual for me. So
Yeah. It
I think
transcends
it
language and
transcends language,
religion,
culture,
everything.
religion, all that stuff, right? So there's something to that to me. I don't care to figure it out. I'm just grateful to um, get to do that
Yeah.
and to get to bring people joy through the music that I make with my best friends. Um, so what gets me out of the bed and what gets me out of bed in the morning is on a practical level, getting my kid to school and all that kind of stuff. But what am I working on is what I'm. It's what am I thinking about? It's whatever I'm working on.
Yeah. Is there any other thing you want to go after in life?
Mm, there's not.
That's a
There's
great. It's
not.
great. It's great to be able to
eh,
say to
There's
say
not.
that.
And I I like. I want to keep. I just want to make music, and I'll do other stuff. I wrote the book, and maybe I'll write another book sometime. I have a couple ideas of things that would be fun to explore like that. And there's different genres of music and different roles in the creation of music. I've been writing with other people and writing songs that aren't metal or that in some cases aren't even really rock music and um, having pretty good experience doing that. But it's still songwriting for me. So I want to make music. I We talked earlier about our wives, and my wife is a lot younger than me and she's starting to get her groove in all these projects and different activities that she's good at and kind of pursuing. And it's so fun to watch somebody do that.
Yeah.
Somebody that, you know, you love, watch them do that and know that I really don't want to do. I don't want to chase some new career or conquer some new, you know, it's not sad to say that.
Yeah.
It feels really free and calm.
That's awesome. Simple question. How much better is being clean than being loaded?
Oh God, man. It's just it's just a whole life, and so I didn't get clean until I was 46. And that, you know, so I that's a solid 30 years that I was running and gunning pretty hard and really hard towards the last 10 years. Uh, you know, the last 10 years of my using. So sometimes it's a little, I can almost make it sad. Like, damn, I wish my life in recovery was going to be longer than it's going to be. Because, you know, 30 or 40 years is all I'm going to get.
Yeah.
At best, you know, that's not promised. And it, you know, I'm not, anyone watching this, I'm not cured. I'm not exempt. I could fuck all this up tomorrow.
Yeah.
Uh, I hope I don't. I don't expect
Yeah.
I will. Not tomorrow. And you know, we have things we do that sort of keep us, you know, a number of dominoes in front of that last one. But anyway, how much better is it? It's just a completely different life, and one that's really, really dear to me. I know that I would be dead had I not gotten clean. I know that.
Yeah.
And so it's everything. I'd make the joke that these are the deleted scenes. Like, this is the director's cut. Like, it's, I don't even, based on that old life, I'm not even supposed to be here.
Yeah.
And it's just the best it's ever been. And I know that's because I got clean. There's no question in my mind. I'm not selling anybody anything. That's just the truth.
Well, I've closed every episode with a question based on what my youngest son, Killian, he started doing this thing all on his own, where if you know, it started with Lisette doing something that made him really happy, and he just looked at her as pure as could be and said, that really made my heart smile. And he'll equally say that makes my heart very sad. But I think you just kind of answered it. But what makes your heart smile today? But saying, you know, what you just described, you know, that's it. That's it for me. The last thing I'll say, kind of in closing, is, you know, I lost my dad. September will be 3 years ago. And knowing, I leaned on you and Clint Lowry during that whole process daily, knowing that each of you had gone through that, you know, in the not too distant past, and and also connected with you on the fact that there are times, regardless of what your thoughts of the afterworld are or whatever, or what religious beliefs or any of that, I have had the experience multiple times of my dad, you know, feeling his presence, just knowing he's around. And it's the most comforting thing, you know. It happened just a few weeks ago, and I immediately texted you, you know, and I was at another, you know, buddy of mine in recovery, and we do this ridiculous, we call it the treatment, where you I'm so middle-aged white guy. I have a podcast and I'm about to talk about cold plunging, but we do this rotation of 20 minutes in a 200 plus degree sauna and then 5 minutes in a 38 degree cold plunge. And we do 3 rotations of it. It's getting high, sober, getting high. That's all I'm doing.
Right.
But after I got out of the third go, I was just standing there trying to warm up in the sun, and dude, my dad was just there. I don't know how else to say it, you know, and it was just this reminder. It wasn't a bad thing at all. It was just wonderful, you know. It was just love. It was that same feeling as being in the ditch and wanting to talk to my daughters, or, you know, seeing the lights come on in somebody's eyes who's catching recovery. You know, it's all the same thing. connecting with other people. And so I'm grateful, not only, I'm grateful for you being there at that time of my life. I'm just super grateful to get to know you, and to whatever we got left on this journey, that we get to, do part of this together. And it's been so incredible to watch the lights come on for you in recovery. It's I
Yeah,
never
you
take
caught you caught me early in.
I did. And I didn't
Uh,
get to know you loaded, so
yeah, yeah.
but just the change from when you came in till now is awesome.
Well, you've been a big part of it, man, and I lean on you too. You're definitely one of the two or three, like when it comes to this recovery stuff. You're one of the top two or three on my list that I'm checking in with if you know if I need perspective on it on something. And so I appreciate you
Yeah, man.
showing me how to do this thing.
Well, it's one of the reasons I wanted to do this whole podcast, is just to, if you're grateful for something, you take care of it. And if you want to know if I'm grateful for my truck, go out in the driveway and look and see if it's clean or not, or if I've changed the
Yeah,
oil. And it's the same with relationships, and we have to maintain these connections, but it takes two people to do that. And so the older I get, the more I realize you got to have those dance partners. So when people show up for you the way you show up for them, you honor that and show gratitude for it. And I'm grateful for you. That's all. I really appreciate you doing it, Mark. Thanks for doing this.
thanks for having me, man.